campaign, and they got the GLA, and they hold councillors to account. And tomorrow we've got a big hate crime conference. We had some funding from the Trust for London, and actually we've made that sort of something that's actually being talked about in Brent. So I think that, you know, people are fighting back. And the other thing that I noticed today, we're doing another tender for Brent Council. That's the only way that big charities can keep going. And there was a recent attachment to the tender documents which said, oh, by the way, the contract now is going to specify that you have to pay, you have to sort of be a living wage employer. And I can remember talking here years ago saying, well, if you paid people properly, they wouldn't be needing to ask for housing benefit and all the rest of it. So I think, you know, the fact that they have decided to be a living wage employer, of course they contract us to be a living wage employer, that's hopeful. It's not the end, but it's hopeful.
Thank you, Anne.
Okay, I'll talk about hope too. I'll talk about what doesn't give me hope. It doesn't give me hope when parties play a race card. They pretend to give warm words about the NHS, but actually are slagging off a lot of the migrant workers and carers that keep it going. It doesn't give me hope when parties bleat about the NHS and then pass bills that lead to its privatisation, and that's why I don't think any campaign that's serious about fighting for the NHS can include either UKIP or the Conservatives or the Liberal Democrats. That doesn't mean actually I give the Labour Party a free ride. Lots of us have been around for a long time and remember how much, you know, a lot of the changes that are now in place were started by Labour Party politicians in the first place. However, in this campaign that we're doing now, we're working with a lot of good Labour Party activists, and I absolutely warmly welcome that. We work with a lot of Green Party activists, NHS Action Party, lots of independent socialists, lots of socialist groups, and I want that kind of Syriza, Podemos, that's the kind of coalition that gives me hope. And I think actually it's possible that we're going to change things here. We're not going to change things through warm words. Most of us have seen enough election campaigns that we know people will say anything about the NHS at the moment just to buy your vote. We know that this campaign will use the election, and when some people will say, what shall I do in the election? I think we have to pin people down as much as possible. My ideal day would be if in the morning I got Andy Burnham to say commit to reversing the Social Care Act, which is the Labour Party policy, and saying they'll save Charing Cross Hospital and Ealing Hospital. And in the evening I could go out for dinner with Ed Miliband and he'd say the same thing. That would be ideal. I don't think that will happen unless we push and push and push. And so one of the things that I think is important is we use the election, but we keep on afterwards. Because when you look at what's going on, even in Brent, and I've got a lot of respect for a lot of the Brent Labour Party people, and I would hope that we continue working with many of them, if you look at the cuts in social services and what it means if somebody's day centre closes and then their carers' visits get cut down to 15 minutes, if you actually think about what that means to an isolated elderly woman that doesn't see many people anyway, it just seems so inhuman. I hope, I know, that with the humanity of the people in the room, we can do better than that. All it takes is that we are together and that we win something. So I don't even mind if it's Stonebridge that wins first, or Kingsbury Day Centre that wins first, or the library. We want something to win, and then we all feel better and stronger about it. All of us in this room, there's probably a lot more unites us than divides us, and to be honest, that gives me the most hope of all.
Morning everyone, we still awake? Good? Right. Basically, as you said with the housing, now I've listened to a lot of people here, and yes, we're all going the right way, but I still don't understand why you keep asking about what you're going to get back, which is already yours. It belongs to you. Don't give it away. If they're not going to give it to you, you take it. That's what it's all about. We're living on our estate. We fought for what we've got. I've lived there for over 35 years. I'm still facing eviction. Families, generations have gone. Now, the community, you've got to realise it's the strongest force there is. Your community is what they are afraid of. That's why they want to destroy it. That's why they want to get rid of you. None of the political parties, or the financial parties can understand the runnings of a community because they don't have one. They have games. They talk about our game culture. That's what they run in. But I'm telling you now, if you really want to really fight it, and you can fight it, and you can beat them, because we are beating them. The first thing you do is remove all the landowners and the landlords, the majority of whom are making all the decisions for you. They're the ones telling you where you live. They're the ones telling you about the hospitals. They're the ones that tell you about the schools. They don't need them. They don't want them. Our housing officer, who's in charge of our housing policy, has said he doesn't want us in his borough. He wants the rich people in. That's his words, and it's quoted in print. Now, land registration is a good way. Millions upon millions upon millions of pounds is being lost because we do not gain access to that. You want to change the laws? Fine. We've got the election coming up. Don't keep standing there and asking them. You tell them. I'm not voting for you unless you give me promises and so that I can keep, and I can hold you to that afterwards. Don't go up there and ask them. You ask, you don't get. Whether it's your union or your political party, you do it. You demand. When you start demanding things, you start getting them. And when your community demands, they will get. And that's where you want to go forward with, is your community. And I'll leave it there. The only last thing I was going to say about is don't let them sell off your public land. It's not theirs, it's yours. Tell them you're not allowed. When we elect these councillors and these members in Parliament, they're there to manage our land, our buildings, our homes. They're not there to sell them. They've got no rights on that. They only started doing that when that maggot came in and started selling off our silver. And I'll finish on, I do apologise, is that to really get it going, have a national building company that will build public houses, council houses. That's the way forward, and that's what you should be demanding for in the next election.
Extremely brief. I'd just like to make a statement and actually leave you with a question. I've been very fortunate to grow up in what I believe a country that propagates democracy, and we've gone so far as to spread it as far as wide as we possibly can. I actually believe that people know what they want. I actually believe that people know what is important to them. And the problem or the challenges they sometimes face is how to get hold of the things that they need. Now I say that by saying this. We propagate democracy, yet Stonebridge Adventure Playground went around and they canvassed and they surveyed and they had their survey return, and out of about 2,000 or so, at least 30 to 1,500 responded saying we want to keep Stonebridge. We want to keep it for our children, and our children want to keep it for theirs. Now, the question I want to leave with you is this. If the majority had made a statement that this is what we want, this is what I know what is best for me, how dare we decide that we know best? If the case is that we're going to listen to what people know, what is good for them, then I think our officers, our councillors, myself, needs to be more respectful. So therefore, I want to say I'm hopeful. But I'd like to add one more word, and I want to say we need to hold people accountable. Because I can say what I want because I want your vote. But after that, I don't know, you need to hold me accountable. We need to hold our councillors accountable. We need to hold our politicians accountable. So if democracy is what it is, then we need to listen to the people. Thank you.
Especially, it's been a fantastic meeting, and organising these meetings is often a thankless task, and people put in real time and effort, so we just have a big round of applause for people actually organising it. I think it was really healthy that people we strongly disagreed with felt able to come up and speak, from the Liberal Democrats and UKIP. It'd be easy to just spend our time talking to ourselves, but actually we need to be challenged, we need to be kept on our toes, if you like. And I think that's useful. I'm glad that it was largely respectful. And Ibrahim, I'm glad you talked about your background and your experiences, and politics lacks people from those experiences and backgrounds, and I think it's really important you spoke in those terms. Nonetheless, in terms of things you believe in, and you expressed in terms of housing and poverty, look at the record of this government, whether it be the bedroom tax, forcing predominantly disabled people which is great to hear, but let's just see what the record of the Liberal Democrats is briefly, to force predominantly poor disabled people to cough up money they don't have, or to downsize to small properties that don't even exist. Over 1 million workers driven into poverty wages, 250,000 last year. Child poverty predicted to surge by up to 1 in 4 children by 2020. Cuts to in-work and out-of-work benefits, and so on and so forth. And the impact for the people you passionately talk about has been pretty devastating. And I have to say, he was a first-time Lib Dem speaker. He voted for the Lib Dems for the first time, and it's funny to think about it, but the Lib Dems back in 2010 inspired a lot of young people. They did. Those young people, the first time they ever voted, I'll be honest, a lot of those young people will never trust another politician ever again. Their faith in our democratic system permanently, irrevocably damaged forever. And I have to say, if there's one thing we can't forgive the leadership of the Liberal Democrats for, is for the damage they inflicted on our democracy as a consequence. And just quickly on UKIP, well, the Speaker again, I'm glad he spoke. Where's he gone? Where is he? I'm glad you spoke. I'm glad you felt able to speak. You spoke about your passion in the National Health Service, which is the most beloved institution in this country. Your leader wants to completely dismantle the National Health Service. He stated he wants to replace it with a private healthcare system to be run by private insurance companies. That is the truth, by the way. What's interesting about the UKIP leadership policies is your voters don't agree with them. They want a publicly owned NHS. They support public ownership of energy and the rail. They want higher taxes on the rich. They want the scrapping of zero-hour contracts. They want to increase the minimum wage. And if there's one thing we can do, it is to peel off the supporters of UKIP who are being told to be angry with immigrants, not the people who didn't build housing, not the people who stripped the jobs from our economy, not the people who let the minimum wage fall year after year, not the people who left us with weak trade unions so they couldn't stand up for workers, but to blame immigrants instead. And we will peel off the supporters of your party and turn that anger on the people responsible, those at the top, and I have to say the bankers and rich people who bankroll your party. But just quickly on the other stuff, I'm not going to tell people who to vote for. That's not for me to do. There will be people in this room who vote Labour or Green or Tusk, and we need unity and solidarity, and we'll open up divisions to say otherwise. Now, obviously we have a difficult electoral system. In Greece, I went to Greece a few weeks ago for the election. If you get more than 3%, you automatically are elected into Parliament. It's not the case here. And all I would say is, obviously there will be a choice between a Labour-led and a Conservative-led government. So all that means pragmatically, even if you abhor everything Labour stands for, you have to put pressure on the Labour leadership as best you can. And the reason we've got these commitments on repealing the privatisation of the NHS bill inflicted by this government, the repeal of the bedroom tax, which will make a huge impact on some of the poorest and most vulnerable people in society, and a clampdown on tax avoidance, is because people took to the streets and demonstrated, and it shows that people power works. But yes, I went to Greece, and if Labour comes to power, and I saw the hope and optimism there, the Greek equivalent of the Labour Party came to power in 2009. They got 44% of the vote. In the last election, a few weeks ago, they got 4% of the vote. If you attack your own supporters, if you make them pay for a crisis they had nothing to do with, you will